May 4, 1929, 3 o'clock in the morning, Brussels, Belgium. A baby girl is born with the most interesting chart I've seen in a while. Taurus Sun, Pisces Moon, Aquarius Rising. And wait, Jupiter conjunct her Sun, amplifying absolutely everything. This child will grow up to survive Nazi occupation, dance for the resistance, nearly starve to death, and somehow become the most elegant woman Hollywood has ever seen. And her chart predicted every single moment of it. But here's what really gets me. This woman had Venus in Aries, the planet of love and beauty in one of the most independent, fiery signs. And this placement, it explains why she walked away from Hollywood at the height of her career. It explains the 2 failed marriages. And it explains that final great love she found at 49 that lasted until her last breath. We'll get to all of that. Oh, and that humanitarian work she did at the end of her life, the UNICEF missions to Ethiopia, Somalia, Bangladesh, pure Aquarius Rising destiny. But the reason she felt so called to help starving children specifically? That Pisces Moon trauma from watching her own neighbors die of hunger during the war. The chart predicted everything. Keep that connection in mind because it explains her entire second act. This is Audrey Hepburn, and I'm about to show you exactly how this Taurus created the most timeless elegance in film history. If you're obsessed with understanding historical figures through their cosmic blueprints, hit subscribe and listen. I need to know something. Would you want Audrey's chart? That Taurus grace, that Pisces emotional depth, that Aquarius humanitarian calling, but knowing it came with war trauma, 2 divorces, and multiple heartbreaking miscarriages? Comment below, because I'm genuinely torn on whether her blessings outweighed her suffering. The astrology says both were written in the stars. Okay, so let's break down this chart because it is genuinely wild. Sun in Taurus at 13 degrees. Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet of love, beauty, and pleasure. This is the sign that wants comfort, stability, beauty in all things. Taurus energy is grounded, sensual, patient, and incredibly stubborn when they set their mind to something. They're the ones who will work slowly and steadily toward their goals, refusing to rush, refusing to compromise on quality. And when it comes to aesthetics, Taurus has the most refined taste in the zodiac. They love luxury. They love beautiful things. They love creating beauty around them. Her moon in Pisces adds this whole other layer. The moon represents our emotional inner world, how we process feelings, what makes us feel safe. Pisces moon. People feel everything. They're deeply empathetic, almost psychic in how they can sense others' pain. They're dreamers, artists, healers. But they're also fragile, easily overwhelmed, prone to escapism, carrying the weight of emotions that aren't even theirs. Remember this placement because it explains so much about why she couldn't just be a movie star, why she had to do something bigger with her life. And then there's Aquarius Rising. Your rising sign is how the world sees you, your first impression energy. Aquarius Rising people look different. They carry themselves differently. They're the ones who stand out in a crowd without trying. They have this quality of being ahead of their time. And crucially, Aquarius is the humanitarian of the zodiac, the one who cares about collective suffering more than personal glory. Keep that rising sign in mind for later because it explains her entire final chapter. Now let's add Jupiter conjunct her Sun. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, luck, abundance. When it sits right on your Sun, it amplifies your core identity, your ego, your life path. Everything about who you are gets bigger. This gave Audrey a magnetic quality, a larger-than-life presence even though she was physically delicate. It also suggests protection, like the universe was looking out for her. Born May 4th, 1929 in Brussels, Belgium. Her mother was Baroness Ella van Heemstra, Dutch aristocracy. Her father was Joseph Hepburn Rustin, an English banker. They literally met Hitler in 1935. Both parents had fascist sympathies early on. Let that sit for a second. When Audrey was just 6 years old, her father walked out on the family. 6 years old. And this abandonment, it haunted her for the rest of her life. That Pisces moon needed security, needed emotional connection, and from the very beginning, it was ripped away from her. this is where we see the first shadow of her chart. Taurus craves stability above all else, and her childhood was anything but stable. In 1939, with war looming, her mother made a decision that would change everything. She moved Audrey to the Netherlands, thinking neutral Holland would be safer than England. Huge mistake. In May 1940, the Nazis invaded. Audrey was 10 years old. She watched bombs destroy bridges she had just crossed. She watched soldiers march into her town. She watched everything she knew transform into occupation. And here's where it gets really dark. Her uncle Otto was arrested for resistance activities. The Nazis drove him to a forest, made him dig his own grave, and executed him. This was Audrey's family. This was her reality at 11 years old. That Pisces Moon absorbed every bit of this trauma like a sponge. But watch what the Taurus Sun does. It survives. It adapts. It finds stability wherever it can. Audrey threw herself into ballet. Even under Nazi occupation, she studied dance at the Arnhem Conservatory. Dancing became her escape, her one beautiful thing in a world of horror. Classic Taurus behavior. When everything falls apart, hold on to something beautiful. Perfect the craft. Find grounding in the physical discipline. And then she started using that talent for resistance. She danced in secret performances called the Black Evenings, underground shows to raise money for the Dutch resistance. The windows blacked out, the audience silent. No applause allowed, a teenage girl dancing in darkness to fight fascism. That Aquarius Rising humanitarian spirit showing up even then. She carried messages for downed British pilots. She stuffed resistance newspapers into her socks and delivered them by bicycle. Her family even hid a British paratrooper in their basement. All of this at 15 years old. If you're caught, your entire family gets taken away. But she did it anyway. That Venus and Aries courage, that Aquarius Rising need to help the collective, it was already activated. And then came the hunger winter of 1944 to 1945, the worst of it all, when the Nazis cut off food supplies to the Netherlands as punishment for the resistance. Audrey and her family ate tulip bulbs. They ate nettles and grass. She became so malnourished, she developed edema and anemia. She got so weak, she had to stop dancing entirely. The doctor said the damage from this starvation would stay with her body forever. Think about that. The most elegant woman in film history, her famous slender frame, it came from nearly starving to death as a teenager, that Taurus love of sensual pleasure, of good food, of physical comfort. She was denied all of it during her formative years. The chart promised beauty, and she got famine. April 16, 1945. Liberation Day, Canadian troops rolled into Velp. Audrey had her first cigarette. She was 16 years old and had survived 5 years of Nazi occupation. She had witnessed executions, carried resistance messages, hidden enemy soldiers, and nearly died of hunger. And now it was over. Watch what happens next, because this is where the Taurus energy really takes over. After the war, aid organizations came to the Netherlands, and one of them was a little organization called UNICEF. They brought food, they brought medical supplies, they helped children like Audrey recover from starvation. Remember this, it comes back in the most beautiful way. Audrey moved to Amsterdam to continue her ballet training. At 5'7", she was told she was too tall to be a prima ballerina. Her body had been permanently weakened by malnutrition. The dream she had clung to through the entire war had to die. Classic Taurus challenge. They hate change. They resist letting go. But sometimes the universe has bigger plans, so she pivoted. She became a chorus girl, a model, took small acting roles, that Aquarius Rising unconventional path. She wasn't going to follow the traditional route to stardom because there wasn't one for someone like her. And then came Colette, the famous French novelist, 1951. Colette spotted Audrey filming a movie in Monte Carlo and became absolutely convinced this unknown girl was perfect to play Gigi on Broadway. Just looked at her and knew. That Jupiter conjunct sun luck kicking in. Being in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Audrey had no Broadway experience, no major acting credits, didn't matter. The show was a hit, and Hollywood came calling. This is where everything changes. Keep watching how the chart plays out. Roman Holiday, 1953, her first major American film. She plays Princess Anne, a royal who escapes her duties for a day of freedom and falls in love with a reporter played by Gregory Peck. And this role, pure Taurus Pisces magic. A princess who wants to be normal, romantic, sweet, yearning for authentic connection over royal obligation. Gregory Peck was already a massive star when they cast this unknown girl opposite him. Legend has it he told the studio to put her name above the title alongside his because he knew she was going to be a star. That Jupiter conjunct Sun luck. Being noticed by the right person at the exact right moment. She won the Oscar at 24 years old, first major film. Academy Award for Best Actress, the first actress to win an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and a BAFTA for the same performance. And 6 weeks later, she won the Tony Award for the Broadway play Ondine, the same year. The Jupiter conjunct Sun amplification doing its thing. When good things come for this chart, they come big. But watch the pattern that emerges across her roles, because you can see the chart in everything she chose. Sabrina in 1954. She plays a chauffeur's daughter who transforms herself in Paris and returns elegant enough to capture two brothers' attention. Transformation through beauty. Classic Taurus Venus energy. The Cinderella archetype that resonated so deeply with audiences. War and Peace in 1956, Natasha Rostova. The innocent who survives war and finds her way back to love. Sound familiar? She was basically playing a version of her own story. The Nun story in 1959. A woman who gives everything to religious service, struggles with her individual desires versus institutional demands, and ultimately has to make an impossible choice. That Aquarius Rising tension between self and collective, between personal needs and larger purpose. Breakfast at Tiffany's in 1961. And, okay, this is the one, Holly Golightly. The role that made her an icon. But here's what people miss about Holly. She's not just glamour in little black dresses. She's running from something. She's created an entire persona to escape her past. She's vulnerable underneath all that sophistication. Damaged. Trying to reinvent herself. That Pisces Moon escaping pain through fantasy and reinvention. The scene where she throws her cat out in the rain and then immediately runs back to find him. That's the Pisces Moon vulnerability breaking through the constructed Taurus elegance. That's the real Audrey and the fictional Holly. And that little black dress. The little black dress. Givenchy designed it. It sold for nearly $500,000 at auction decades later. One outfit defined glamour for an entire generation. Taurus aesthetic perfection captured in a single image. My Fair Lady in 1964. Eliza Doolittle. Literally a story about transformation and refinement. Her whole chart's theme made into a musical. The rough diamond polished into something stunning. The emphasis on speech, on voice, on learning. Taurus rules the throat, remember? It was astrologically perfect casting. Though here's some drama about that film, they dubbed her singing voice. Used Marnie Nixon for most of the songs. Audrey was devastated, that Taurus pride wounded. She had worked so hard on those songs. But she never said a bad word about it publicly. Taurus dignity. Handle your business privately. Don't create scandal. She was nominated 5 times for the Academy Award but only won once, for Roman Holiday. The other 4? Nothing. And people always wonder if Hollywood properly appreciated her. But honestly, awards weren't what drove her. That's a Leo obsession, not a Taurus one. She wanted stability, beautiful work, and meaningful connection. She got all of that. But here's where it gets interesting. During Ondine, she met her co-star Mel Ferrer. He was 12 years older than her, twice divorced, 4 children already, and within 8 months, she married him. This is the Venus in Aries shadow. Venus in Aries falls fast, falls hard, makes impulsive romantic decisions. And there's often something about wanting to be conquered, swept away. Ferrer reportedly controlled a lot of her career decisions. People said he was threatened by her success. That Pisces Moon wanted so badly to feel safe and loved that she overlooked red flags. The same year she filmed Sabrina, and this is when she met Hubert de Givenchy. Now this meeting, this changed everything. Givenchy was a young French designer, barely established. Audrey showed up at his studio in Paris and he thought she was Audrey Hepburn coming to visit. When he saw this unknown young actress in a straw hat and ballet flats, he was initially disappointed. But something happened. They clicked instantly, and thus began one of the most iconic partnerships in fashion history. Givenchy designed her costumes for 7 films. Sabrina, Funny Face, Breakfast at Tiffany's, that little black dress that sold for nearly $500,000 at auction. Givenchy. Her entire aesthetic, that minimalist elegance, those simple silhouettes that emphasized her natural grace, all of it came from this collaboration. And here's the thing. Their friendship lasted 40 years, until her death. He dressed her for everything important, her weddings, awards ceremonies, UNICEF events. This is Taurus loyalty. Once they bond with you, it's forever. And Givenchy understood exactly what her chart needed. Beauty made effortless, luxury that didn't scream, elegance that felt natural rather than forced. But while her career was soaring, her personal life was fracturing. She desperately wanted to be a mother, that Pisces Moon needed to nurture, to protect, to create family. But she suffered miscarriage after miscarriage, the trauma, the loss, each one devastating. Finally, in 1960, at age 31, she gave birth to Sean, her first son, her rainbow baby after so much heartbreak. And watch what happens next. Total Taurus behavior. She pulled back from Hollywood. Her son became her priority. Not the career, not the fame, the family, the stable home, the grounded life she never had as a child. But the marriage to Ferrer was falling apart. Rumors of his affairs, his resentment of her success, that Venus in Aries doesn't stay where it's not appreciated. After 14 years, they divorced in 1968, and almost immediately, she married again. Andrea Dotti, an Italian psychiatrist she met on a cruise. Classic Venus in Aries, jumping from one relationship to another, searching for that consuming love. They had a son together, Luca, in 1970. She was 40 years old, but this marriage was troubled too. Dotti's affairs became public, rumors in the tabloids, humiliation, and there was a kidnapping threat in Rome that terrified her so much she barely left the house. That Pisces Moon feeling unsafe again, that childhood trauma being triggered. They divorced in 1982, 2 marriages, 2 failures. That Venus in Aries had chased passion but kept finding pain instead. And then, at 49 years old, everything shifted. She met Robert Wolders at a party, a Dutch businessman and actor, widower of actress Merle Oberon. And something was different this time. They were both older. Both had been through failed marriages. Both knew what they actually needed now, not what they thought they wanted when they were young. They never married. On purpose. She had been married twice and it had ended badly both times. So they just stayed together for 13 years, until her death. When asked why they didn't make it official, she said something beautiful. That it was more romantic this way. They were bound by loyalty, not paperwork. That Pisces Moon finally finding genuine emotional safety, that Taurus stability without the legal constraints that had failed her before, and that Aquarius Rising unconventional approach to relationships. But here's where the chart truly completes itself. Remember that Aquarius Rising, the humanitarian calling? Remember that little girl who received UNICEF aid after nearly starving to death? In 1988, Audrey Hepburn became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. She was 59 years old, she had been semi-retired from film for almost 2 decades, and she found her true purpose. Her first mission was to Ethiopia during a terrible famine. She visited camps, she held dying children. She saw starvation up close for the first time since her own childhood, and something in her unlocked. That Pisces Moon empathy flooding back, that personal trauma connecting to collective suffering. She went everywhere. Turkey, Venezuela, Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Bangladesh, Thailand, Vietnam, Sudan, Somalia. Wherever children were suffering, she went. She gave interviews, testified before Congress, spoke at the United Nations, used every ounce of her remaining celebrity to shine light on forgotten children. She gave as many as 15 interviews a day after returning from missions. 15, because she understood something most celebrities don't. That her fame wasn't for her, it was a platform, a megaphone, and she used it relentlessly. In Ethiopia, she visited an orphanage in Mekelle, where she saw 500 starving children. She described mothers and children who had walked for 10 days, even 3 weeks looking for food, settling onto the desert floor into makeshift camps where they might die. She said that image was too much for her, that she didn't like the term third world because we're all one world. That's Aquarius Rising consciousness, that global perspective, that refusal to separate human suffering into categories of worthy and unworthy. In Somalia in 1992, and this was right before her diagnosis, she held malnourished babies in feeding centers. She walked through camps. She looked directly at horror and didn't turn away. And then she came home and made people listen. And this is what she said about it, that she could testify to what UNICEF meant to children because she was among those who received food and medical relief after World War II. There's a direct line from that starving teenager in Holland to the woman holding malnourished babies in Ethiopia 40 years later. The chart came full circle. She said UNICEF has a wonderful long arm trying to reach the most wounded, that given a spade, which UNICEF provides, people can dig a well, that we must now make sure they do not have to dig graves for their children. That's the kind of thing she said, direct, honest, devastating. Her son Sean later said that his mother saw her acting career as a means to get to a place where she could really make a difference, that she felt she owed her life to UNICEF and that drove her to help others. Imagine understanding your entire career that way, not as the achievement itself, but as the tool to enable something greater. That's pure Aquarius Rising purpose. The individual success matters only because it serves the collective good. In December 1992, President George H.W. Bush gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States, for her work with children, not for her films, for this, and she was already sick. Appendiceal cancer, a rare aggressive form. Diagnosed in late 1992, given 3 months to live, but even then she kept working for UNICEF, traveled to Somalia weeks before her diagnosis, kept giving interviews, kept advocating. She wanted to spend her last Christmas at home in Switzerland. Her partner, Robert, had to arrange a private jet donated by Givenchy to get her there because she was too frail for commercial travel. That 40-year friendship coming through one final time. January 20th, 1993. She passed away at home in Tolochenaz, Switzerland. She was 63 years old. Robert Wolders was with her. Her sons were there. Givenchy attended the funeral. So did Alain Delon. Roger Moore. Elizabeth Taylor sent flowers. So did the Dutch royal family. They interred her at the Tolochenaz cemetery. Simple. Private. Just like the Taurus wanted it. And this is what remains. The American Film Institute ranked her the third greatest female screen legend of classic Hollywood. Behind Katharine Hepburn, behind Bette Davis, ahead of everyone else. But honestly, that ranking almost feels beside the point, because here's what the chart actually created. A woman who transformed starvation into elegance, who channeled wartime trauma into humanitarian service, who proved you could be glamorous and humble at the same time, beautiful and kind, famous and authentic. That Taurus Sun gave her the staying power to endure, to survive the war, to build a career slowly and steadily, to create beauty that lasted. That Pisces Moon gave her the emotional depth that made her performances so affecting, the empathy that drew her to suffering children, the sensitivity that audiences felt through the screen. That Aquarius Rising made her look different, carry herself differently, stand out without trying. And it called her to something bigger than personal fame. The Venus in Aries gave her passion and courage, but also romantic heartbreak. The Jupiter conjunct Sun expanded everything, protected her through impossible circumstances, and brought opportunities that seemed almost fated. She said something once that perfectly captures her chart, that for attractive lips, speak words of kindness, for lovely eyes, seek out the good in people. That beauty isn't something you're born with, it's something you create through how you treat others. That's a Taurus who learned what really matters through a Pisces Moon's emotional wisdom expressed through an Aquarius Rising's humanitarian vision. 32 years after her death, we're still talking about her, still aspiring to her elegance, still moved by her compassion. That's the chart. The Taurus built something that would outlast her. The Pisces connected to hearts across generations. The Aquarius pointed toward collective good. She came into this world during a period between wars. She survived the worst of human cruelty as a child. She became the most elegant woman in film. She found love at the end, and she used her final years to help children who reminded her of herself. That's what happens when a Taurus Sun, Pisces Moon, Aquarius Rising fulfills their cosmic contract. The elegance was never just about the clothes or the posture or the famous eyebrows. It was about grace under pressure. Beauty despite trauma, service despite suffering. The chart wrote a story of transformation, from starving resistance dancer to Hollywood icon to global humanitarian. And honestly, that story is exactly what her astrology promised all along.